it just kind of kept growing. And then it was like new ways to like for like shock value a little bit. And it would just, you know, you kind of crave kind of like that next step a little bit.
Yeah. That next level of a hit.
Yeah. Just bigger dopamine hit. And then, I'd never really understood it as a problem. And I just, my conscience was seared about it. You know, I just didn't really think about it too much. Until I got into a serious relationship with my current fiance. And it was like, it wasn't so like immediately just like hit right there, but I could kind of start to see like, I started getting closer to God. So I felt more convicted to like pursue a godlier lifestyle. And I was like, I got to stop this. I got to get my works right. And then, you know, you see a bunch of content about like how hard it is for men to start trying to quit porn and watching and like lusting over women in their day-to-day life and stuff like that. So it was just kind of like inspiring to kind of see like, oh, so this is what people are dealing with. I should probably get on top of this. And then the relationship got more serious. We started talking about marriage. We started talking about these things. And then I was like, I really, like, if we're going to go down this road, I have to take care of this because I can't have this bleed into our relationship because I don't know what it could lead into. Yeah. I was pretty honest with her about it. And she was so supportive. So like, God bless her, and very appreciative to be with a woman that has such grace over something like that. And to understand it and just be appreciative that like almost every man my age is probably watching porn right now. I appreciate that you're actually trying to get over it and putting steps forward to do it.
Did she express with you how it makes her feel?
A little bit, but not really. I think that it is sensitive and it's kind of like an odd topic. I think like I know it probably makes her feel some type of way. You know what I mean? Especially that I have a problem with it, you know, and it's gotten better. You know, it's like I used to be watching it, you know, 3 times a day.
Really?
Now it's, yeah, for it like.
That's not even that much.
It's not?
Yeah, when I wake up.
I have no idea what.
I mean, there was a time where
this can be
like the worst it was like 7 times a day because I was like just bored. Like I didn't do anything all day. So like, you know, morning, lunch, before I go to bed. And it was like a routine, you know? Yeah, it was kind of just like routine as part of my daily thing. And I was like, cool. It's like,
and again, if it's a way to manage stress, you know what I mean? Think about other things that we do to manage stress. Eating. How many times do people snack a day? You know what I mean? When I'm stressed, I drink a coffee. I can drink up to 10 cups of coffee a day. You know what I mean? So like when it becomes something that, especially for some people, I don't know if this is too graphic, but for some people, it's an hours long event. Not everybody's like that though. So if it's something that happens faster, you have plenty of times during the day. It's like smoking a cigarette. You know what I mean? Like you can get a bunch of cigarette smoking times in or whatever. You know what I mean? So like for me, I'm not shocked to hear that because I think about other addictive behaviors and how many times a day we engage in those.
I don't think I've ever looked at it that way, which is interesting.
And I think we're undereducated on sex. You know what I mean? So a lot of like women that I've talked to, because I tend to talk to women more than men, they'll tell me something and they'll think that I'm just going to be like really shocked. But the thing they end up telling me is actually like so common and so normal. And so like when you're describing this, you know what I mean? And
I was shocked. You were not.
Yeah. Because,
I just looked.
And and that makes sense because like we're not talking about it a lot. And again, I'm not encouraging a society where it's like all we do is overshare about our sex lives with strangers. That's not what I'm talking about. But there's just a lack of discussion in this area, even in the therapy community. When you go to therapy, you don't necessarily talk about your sex life unless you go to literally sex therapy, you know? So anyway, but yeah, within the sphere of men, you start to just see the patterns and how it's similar to any other addiction. You know, when you take the sexual aspect of it out, you know what I mean? Like people are shocked by, oh my gosh, it's like a lot of sex. And it's like, yeah, but think about any other drug and how many times a day you think about that drug and want to use that drug.
So he has shared with me in past that this was a struggle. And so in my head, I thought, well, maybe once or twice a week or something.
Yeah.
And
that's where it's at now. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Personally, like that. And it's interesting, like what you said earlier about like, the time spent doing it, the less that I do it more frequently, the longer I draw out that experience for myself.
Right.
Which I find is kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. Yeah.
Do you find you put weird expectations on your
fiance
because of what you've seen or think is normal?
So it's interesting. Like yesterday you were talking about fantasy and like, there's like, that was like I knew it, but it was a little more eye opening to have like words put to like that thought, because I know it's so unfair. I know
Should we
it's
have
so
a repeat
unfair.
kind of? Do you remember
Yeah.
what that was about?
Just a quick recap. It's in like the other video we posted for my interview yesterday. But essentially, like there's a fantasy that's cultivated through this stuff, and girls can get addicted to the fantasy through erotica reading. By the way, like even a female that I've talked to in the past, like she talked about how she used to be addicted to porn and then moved into reading instead. I think for women, stories are more addictive, and for men, the visual aspect of things is more addictive. But girls can absolutely be addicted to porn, but I think women tend to gravitate more towards stories. But either way, when you cultivate an unrealistic fantasy for yourself from absorbing fantasy-based content, we start wanting that to emerge in our real life. So girls want this sort of fantasy from the love stories that they've watched, whether it's Disney movies, rom-coms, whatever it is.
Even the Hallmark Channel.
Yeah, they want stuff like that. They want a guy who just chases them around like crazy while they push him away. You know what I mean? Like no matter how many times they reject him, he keeps coming because he just can't stay away. He's like a moth to a flame, and then they fall in love.
Yeah.
And then it's just good forever because you never find out how the relationship goes for the next 5 years because the movie ends, right? So like, what are you supposed to do after the honeymoon stage? Girls don't know. They usually just break up with them and move on to the next guy. You know what I mean? And then for guys, there's the fantasy of porn. And men develop a very unrealistic standard, whether they realize it or not, for what they want from women. And what that is typically is us not having any emotional needs, us essentially just being this porn star girl. Because the girls in porn don't have emotional needs. They don't shame or reject the guy. They don't have any standards for what they prefer, right? They're down for anything because that's whatever the video is about, that's what they're down for. So men tend to become displeased with women and form resentment against women sometimes. And even girls can do this resentment against guys when that fantasy isn't being fulfilled. Instead of blaming the fantasy and recognizing it as completely unrealistic, as something that maybe could happen in real life once or twice, but is not sustainable long term. You can't have sex like that all the time long term. You know what I mean? Like
to a woman.
Yeah, there's so many aspects to it where it's like, it's not the girl's fault if the porn video can't be perfectly replicated in the bedroom. So instead of getting mad at the fantasy for girls or for guys, people are getting mad at each other. They're saying, oh, it's her fault or it's his fault that my Hallmark movie or my porn video didn't come true. I need to go look somewhere else,
So interesting. So my friend gave me these vampire erotica, which I didn't understand. That's what they were probably about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I started reading this weird, this is so embarrassing that I'm sharing this. I can't even remember. She would know because she had a hard time letting him go. Yeah.
I'm like, is it freaking Twilight?
No, it was like it was this whole family, and they anyway.
Sounds like Twilight.
Yeah, it was, but I think it's older than that. And so it was so funny because I would become, and this is a Christian channel, but this really happened, right?
Yeah.
I became very sexually charged, and I apologize that you had to hear that. And my husband was sleeping and did not understand where I was. And then I felt like that was a rejection of me. And he's not in the same place because he didn't read and I didn't even look at it as...
You're not a vampire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why can't you be a beefy vampire?
Why aren't you biting my neck?
And he's so in love with her.
Yeah.
But it is so silly how I created this whole fantasy of how my husband should be on a vampire. I know it's embarrassing to say.
But this is what happens. This
and
literally what happens.
I remember laying there angry at him. And how could he sleep through this?
So now you know how men feel.
Yes.
With porn. Like it's a way to connect a bridge.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Instead of women being mad at men like, oh, they watch porn and they reject me, screw them. It's like, but do you not do the same thing in a different way? Like what expectations do you have of men that are completely unrealistic, especially in the world today where the world's just like annihilating men's characters and propping women up like they're flawless. You know, women can have their own fantasy addictions for sure. Yeah.
Did you relate to what she said?
Yeah. So like, it's interesting, like in my relationship, like as I've noticed it, like when you're like watching porn, it's usually like scrolling to find the video that you like. And then it's like, okay, I got enough from this, scroll to the next video, and dopamine. And it becomes like a seek for variety, I guess, right? So obviously you don't get that when you're in a committed relationship. You get one person that you're supposed to have a loving, committed
with
relationship
their own limitations.
with their own limitations. And like
Yep.
that like it's designed that way for a reason, right? Like it's beautiful. It's good. It's like, it's healthy.
It pushes you to grow.
I know how in my mind these like I can see like in my mind like this is unfair to her right now. So I don't really like I think the way that I let it out is my ability to participate sometimes. Like I feel like sometimes it's hard for me to like want to engage in the sexual act because, you know, maybe like I had watched it recently and I just feel like I'm just not there ready to have this experience with you right now. Or I'm
From the guilt?
it's more about like,
Because it can't be the fantasy that you just experienced.
yeah, sometimes.
Yep.
And sometimes like it's like it bleeds into like cause like I'm seeking variety. It bleeds into my ability for attraction.
Sure.
So, and it's not
Oh,
anything that has to do with her. It's like, it has everything to do with me.
How can she not feel like it's her?
Exactly. So then she ends up feeling rejected because sometimes maybe like I don't want to engage in that way, or like I'm like battling in my head about like, this is messed up. Like I can't be doing this, or this is wrong, you know?
Yeah.
And I end up being upset with myself and having shame and guilt.
Imagine that, but then in the female version of it, I was only like, so you were seeking variety and you were looking for a certain type of sexually varied experience, and it's hard to be attracted to things that aren't on that level. I became only attracted to psychopathic men, and I could feel no attraction to neurotypical men.
Wow.
So instead of it being a specific sexual experience in the sense of the sexual act, I couldn't be attracted to a certain romantic experience.
Wow.
And that is affecting many, many, many women.
Yeah.
And people are not talking about that a lot.
Yeah.
But psychopathy is being normalized. I would even argue that the cool girl trope is a psychopath when you actually look at the characteristics of her.
I would agree with that.
She is a psychopath. Yeah. She has no emotional needs. She's reckless. Sociopathy, most of them have a crazy high death rate because they die from doing like crazy reckless things. You know what I mean? They don't crave long-term relationships. The cool girl doesn't. You just, you look at her and she's really a psychopath. And so people are trying to imitate men are trying to imitate psychopaths because I don't think there's as many psychopaths around us as people allege.
Yeah.
So men are trying to imitate the cool boy who's a psychopath to please women.
Wow.
Girls are trying to imitate a psychopath, the cool girl, to please men. Everybody's pretending to be a psychopath, but most people aren't. And we're all
crazy.
walking around looking like messes.
That's
you know?
a trip. I did not thought about it like that. Wow.
Yeah.
That is something to chew on. That is something to chew on.
You're
Wow.
Pause. Awesome, heavy. Yeah, that is.
But
That's
I
cool
still
though. Like, it's
struggle.
interesting.
It's interesting
It is, but I still struggle with being attracted to neurotypical men.
Yeah.
because they're boring.
That they don't stimulate. He's talking about stimulation.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
stimulate me. They don't
man.
stimulate me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that to a man. I'm not going to be like, you don't stimulate me.
I
Do you
know.
think it's because your first experiences were
Yes.
with this?
Yes. And not just him. 10 years of my life, that type of man. 10
Well,
years.
that's your normal.
Yeah.
It
So
is
you
a
have to rewire
traumatic
the.
experience that rewired your.
Imagine if you'd
Well,
had
this is your
And
normal.
exactly, this is my traumatic experience. Like
how many years
yeah.
with porn?
11.
When do you feel
13?
like it reached the crazy sexual variant stage? How many years in that?
Ooh, probably 7 or 8. Yeah.
Just be aware you are rewiring your brain, you know? And I really think about that with myself too. Every time I reject a psychopathic experience, I am rewiring my brain for the
Praise
better.
God.
I might not be able to be attracted
Romans
to
12:1.
Can you
Romans
say-
12:1 and 12:2.
Yeah, do you want to say
Renewing of
it?
the mind. Yeah.
What was it?
That's the renewing of the mind.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Where we don't want to be conformed to this world.
Yes. Mhm.
But transformed by the
renewing
renewing
of
of
our
our minds.
minds.
That's God rewiring
Yeah.
us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he can. So I try to be patient with myself because I'm still not able to be attracted to neurotypical men yet, but I am I'm significantly less attracted to psychopathic experiences. That is a huge step for me to the point where I don't crave them and most of them turn me off. So
Yeah.
like you can't change overnight. God can't always rewire overnight. You know what I mean? But like that, I know that that's a huge step for me. I don't know if I'll ever be able to be attracted to neurotypical men. I pray for that.
Yeah.
But I understand from what you're describing, this is the female version of it, in my
Yeah.
opinion.